And welcome everybody to the adoption webinar. This is context-aware access to control core services. The link is here, oops, I've tried to click on it, amp.it/context-aware. So if you need that, it'll be posted at the top of the slides as we go forward. And I believe Devin is helping out from Google, and she is going to be posting that in the chat as well. So we will take care of that for you. But that's our slide deck for today. It'll be up, it'll stay up. So if you want to reference that at any point, just let us know and we can get you the link. My name is Kendall Shimura. I'm a Google for Education training consultant here at Amplified IT. My email is there as well, which is probably the most important part of the slide in case you need to get in contact with me for anything. If you have any questions after this session, anything at all, feel free to reach out to me. Being a training consultant with Amplified IT, if you don't know who we are, maybe you've never worked with us, we're a US and Canada-based company. We work with Google as a premier partner for everything technical in the admin console. We have a bunch of different services that we offer. So if you are interested in any kind of service as far as support with your G Suite environment, G Suite console, anything like that, we do a lot of training, we do audits, we do lab tools to help admins as well. Anything you can think of, if you can think, I need help with my admin console, Amplified IT is probably the one to go to. For today's agenda, since we have a short time together, context-aware access we're going to do in 3 parts, and the main 2 parts are the first. Context-aware access explained, so we're going to kind of talk about what that is and what that isn't. And then we're going to do a live demo, and I'm going to show you how to set things up, where to set things up, and how to get there. For questions and answers, those will be coming in from Devin. She's going to put any questions that she sees out there into the chat for me, and I will be answering those as we go. You can wait till the end with your questions, or you can ask them as they come up. Either way, I'll try and address them in the most timely way possible. And if you just joined us, amp.it/context-aware, top right corner will be where we have our slide information. So without further ado, we are going to go ahead and get started here. First things first, context-aware access. Let's explain what that is. So context-aware access control is a part of Enterprise which allows you to set different levels of access based on 4 main criteria, or 3 or 4 main criteria. The 4th one is nesting rules on top of rules. So we'll talk about that when we get in the admin console. But first and foremost, to allow different levels of access based on identity and location, device security status, which is more for mobile devices, company-owned mobile devices, and then IP address. So you have 3 main areas that'll allow you to restrict services or apps by OUs and groups. So what we're essentially saying here is you can identify that somebody is calling in from somewhere like something like let's say Canada outside the US or in Mexico, and you want to say, oh, if you're not in the US, then I'm not going to allow you to access our services. You can get a little bit more defined if you go to the IP address option as well. And then device security status, we're going to go over, I'll show you the options, but that's going to be more for your mobile devices. If they're company-owned mobile devices and they're enrolled in that mobile device management option, then you can use the device security status for that. There is a really good video that Google put out here as well. I'm not going to play the whole video for you because I don't think you can hear the sound. But this is kind of another explanation of how to control access to sensitive information. So this is a way that we can use this service, and you can see here with our little diagram, to limit access to these services. So putting another layer of security on top of these services when we have options like Vault or Mail, and we want to say, you know, we don't want you checking it when you're at home, things like that. The big thing that we want to talk about here are kind of 4 main use cases that we've come up with for this. Context-aware access use cases are things like part-time staff checking their emails. So if you have part-time staff, maybe you have nurses that work at your schools, that when they're at school, you want them to have access to Gmail and you want them emailing and being able to access email, but maybe it's not something you want them to have access to when they're not actually at a school site. That's something that you can arrange with context-aware access. You can also block Vault access for admins based on things like geographic location, IP address. So maybe it's a thing where you only want your Vault admins or your Vault access to be allowed if they are connected to your network or your school network. Same with chats kept to school only. For students, I know a lot of us are in this kind of maybe mixed bag right now where some students are back at school, some students are not, some students are. Maybe we're in a hybrid situation. Depending on where you're at, when students are going back to school, when they're all back at school as well, we've had success with schools deciding to set chats to only at school. So students can use Google Chats, but they can only use it when they're on the school network. And again, it's all about what do we want students and staff to do when they're at home and be allowed to do when they're at home or offsite, and what do we want to keep to really our school site and things on our network. We can also protect core apps from outside of the country. So we can say things like, you can use this app as long as you're in this country. You can use this app as long as you're not in this country. So you can decide that in context-aware access. So those are our main use cases. Again, these are 2 reference slides for you if you're wondering what you would use it for, trying to figure out the use case for it. With that being said, I want to spend kind of the rest of our time before we get to questions and answers. I want to spend kind of the rest of our time going through our live demo of the context-aware access. Oops, not clicking on that. So to do that, I'm going to go into the admin console. And if you have enterprise on your domain already, which probably a lot of you already do, you're going to go down to you're going to go over to the 3 lines or the pancake stack in the top left corner. You're going to go down to security, and you're going to go over to context-aware access. It's one of the main options off of security as long as you have enterprise license enabled. Now, once you're in here, you can actually turn off context-aware access altogether. So if you say, I don't want this on at all, you can turn it off. If you don't assign access levels to anybody, you're currently not affecting anybody. So you don't have to worry and think, oh man, if it's on, it's going to be blocking everybody from accessing my content. No, that's not the case. It's going to be only if you assign access levels. So let's talk through the 3 options here. So the first one is access levels. So this is how we build them. This is where we're going to define, and you can see we've been playing around quite a bit, but this is where we're going to define by creating an access level, and I'm going to call this live demo, or let's just call this, let's call this live demo. That way I can identify it later. So we'll call it live demo. Now I get to define the conditions by which somebody can access or can't access the service. So I can say they meet these conditions or don't meet these conditions, add attribute, and you can see there are the 3 main ones we talked about already: IP subnet, device policy, and geographic origin. So you also have this 4th option here, which I mentioned on the call earlier. Access level allows you to say this other access level has to be met in addition to whatever else I define here. So you're saying that not only does one access level have to be met, but it also has to be met. So it's almost in order of, if I chose, let's just say I chose access level, and let's just, oops, I think I clicked on I think it registered the wrong one. There we go. And I said USA access only. So now I'm saying it has to meet the USA access only, and it has to meet, let me see here, it has to meet the IP subnet, and I'm just going to do like the example, I'll just do 74.125.195, just depending on what your setup is. So this is where you're going to put in your IP subnet for your school. So it has to be in the US and it has to be on this IP subnet, which you might think, well, that's a little repetitive. Obviously, it would be. And that's true, but you can set it up however you want. You could change this to has to be USA access, and it is the geographic origin you're saying is also, it also has to be, it also has to be something like, I guess not here, we might do add a condition and say don't, has to be USA, and it cannot be Antarctica. Okay, so we can say it has to be USA and it cannot be Antarctica. So we can do and statements on top of these. You can do multiple access levels inside of here as well. So this is really a place where you get to define how you're going to set up your context-aware access levels. So let's just say meet these conditions, add attribute. I'm going to say IP subnet. I'm just going to do whatever I can here, and I'm just going to call it 105. You know, whatever you're going to put for your IP subnet. I'm going to create an access level, and this is going to allow me to go to the app assignments or create another one, or I can click the X and go back. And you can see here, I have my access levels. I also have the live demo. I can edit this if I need to. I can always come back and delete this, right? So I can edit these and delete these. But once I've created my access levels, well, I go back one step up here in the breadcrumb trail to context-aware access. Then I'm going to come down and go to assign access levels. So assigning access levels allows you to then apply these access level rules to the services that you see here. And you can see here, these are our core services, right? So we're not seeing additional services. There's no additional services here. But on the left, you have the ability to use groups and assign these. And so you can assign it to a group based on a core service. So it lets you get even more defined, saying, let's say I want to define my nurses, and I want to say, you know, if I had a nurses group, but I don't have a nurses group, I could say nurses group. I'm going to use high school teachers just as an example here. So I have teachers. I can go to mail. I click assign when I hover over, and I'm doing the live demo, which you remember is our IP subnet for our school. So what I'm saying is this group, let's say nurses, now is applied to the live demo access rule, which means that this group of individuals in this group here, ABC high school teachers, can only access Gmail if they meet the requirement that they're on the school network. Now in here, you can see I can check multiple boxes. So I could say, you know, I could say not US and this is on the school domain network, or I could choose this one, which makes a little bit more sense. But this is an or statement. So they have to meet one or the other, right? This isn't an and statement. The and statements were back in the access level creation. This is an or statement saying if you are not in the US or you're on our school network, which logically doesn't make a lot of sense, you could then access this service. I can remove them if they're a hindrance and save it, and that'll reset it back to normal. But I can also do this by OU, and a lot of times we're probably going to apply this more towards our OUs. For staff, I might have a super admins OU, and I might say, you know, for Google Vault, I want you to access Google Vault, but honestly, I don't want you working on it at home. I want you only working on it when you're on the school network. So if you have an on-school network only, or our live demo one was the same, the on-school network only option would allow you to say, no, only on the network are you allowed to access Google Vault. Same thing for your students. Let's just say we have our students here and Google Chat. Maybe we want them to use chat. Maybe everyone's going back to school. We want them to only use chat when they're at school because chat is a great tool, but we don't want them at home at night. You know, it's late at night and they're messaging each other on chat. We don't want them to use it for that. So we might choose on school network only for this as well. So the rules that you set up, it's really easy to set these up. It's just all about the logic that you're following for how you're going to configure these once they are set up, right? So it's the logic that you have to follow. If they're on the school network, they're probably obviously in the country of origin, right? So if it may not be US, wherever you're watching from, but if they're in the country and on your school network, those are almost repetitive of one another. However, you might say that you want to have, and I'm going to go back to context-aware access. So you might want to, oops, clicked on the wrong one there. You might say test, I'm just going to do that just to show you, but you might want to say does not meet these conditions. So you might say, I am good with every country accessing it, but we've had potential hacking or phishing or something coming from, I don't know, let's just choose one, Croatia, right? So we've had problems with people trying to access our data from Croatia. We're going to block Croatia for everybody. So if you're in Croatia, sorry, if you took a family trip, you cannot access anything in there. So that's kind of the idea of what you're setting up here is you're trying to figure out the scenarios and situations where you don't want somebody to access something. If somebody's on vacation, though, you have to consider that. If they're going to go out of the country and you still want them to have access, you also have the ability, I just want to show you this too. You also have the ability to add the attribute for device policy. Now, this is for if you have managed devices under mobile device management. If you have these mobile devices, you can say they have to have a password in order for them to access the data. There has to be a password on the device, otherwise it won't be able to access the data. So if that's the case, if any of these get triggered, if somebody isn't following your access rules, this right here, user message, is what they're going to see. So they're going to see you do not have access, and you can do a custom message here at the bottom. Contact your administrators for assistance with getting access. You can preview the message here. And this is exactly the screen that somebody will see when they go to try and access those services that don't meet that context-aware access. So the best way to kind of describe this and to think about this, if you're relaying this to anybody, it's like a second gate of entry, right? Once you get through the first gate, which is signing into G Suite or Google Workspaces, once you get signed in, you're signed into your account. Great. We as administrators want to say, here's one more step you have to take to get access to your information. So let's just say, for users that you want them in G Suite or Google Workspaces, you obviously want them in there, but you don't want them to access their data when they're away from your school site. Okay, you can totally do that. I know staff have asked, for a way to block access to Gmail at night. One of the ways you could use this potentially would be to set up a rule where you're blocking Gmail access for users that are not on site. So that's an idea. Not saying it's the best one right now with everyone working remotely for the most part, or a lot of people working remotely, but it is something that you could potentially do. All right. And I saw there is a question from Samuel. Are there any time-based access level rules? And unfortunately right now, Samuel, there are not. The only rules that you have, and I'm going to go in here again. I think you guys seen this a couple times, but let me show you again. You only have IP subnet, device policy, geographic origin, and then assigning another access level. So there's no time-based access rules on here. That's not something you can do. It's really about location, location, location. All right. So this is a good time. I know we're getting near the end of our time as well. Any other questions from the group? I'll kind of bump us ahead to the question and answer section here. Any other questions from the group about how to set them up? Devin said there's quite a bunch, so she's going to send them over to me, and I will answer them. Oh, a quiet bunch. Quiet, not quite a bunch. Oh, sorry about that. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to throw them in. Otherwise, my email is at the beginning of the slide, so you can always email me a question if you have a question as well. If you haven't tried context-aware access and you're an enterprise license owner and you're an admin, it is something that I would start to explore. There may only be one or two cases, but those one or two cases are worth exploring the tool. It is something that we see it's not as commonly used because it's not on the forefront. It's not the investigation tool or the security dashboard. But this is something that you would definitely want to set up. And from Vera, it is only for enterprise. So you would have to have enterprise and enterprise license assigned in order for context-aware access control to take effect. All right. Give you another second to get your questions in if you have any more questions for me while we're on the session. Yeah, so that's a good question. Do users have to have an enterprise license for the context-aware access setting to take effect? And that's actually a good one. And it says right here, available only for users with specific enterprise licenses. So users do have to have the enterprise license assigned to them in order for the context-aware access control to take effect. Now, if you have a whole domain or full domain license, then it would take effect for all of your users. But if you're doing individual licensing, then you would need to assign those to the users you want this to take effect for. And from Jason, would there be any way to keep students from using chat late at night? Unfortunately, Jason, the only way we could do that would be saying Google Chat can only be used on the school network. So that's based on location. There's no time-bound access level requirement. For Michael, for devices, can access be restricted to Chromebooks only? Good question. There isn't a Chromebooks only requirement for this. This is for all apps, and it's for all of Chrome all the way across. So for Chrome OS, for Chrome browsers, no way to actually restrict it for Chromebooks only. And then how can you remove an assignment? Yeah, so if you go to assign and you assign, like, I don't know, 2, and you accidentally are like, oh, those aren't right, you just go back to the word assign over here. So I don't know why it went away from me, but click on assign, uncheck those boxes, and save it again. And that will unapply those access levels. Unapply, deapply, don't think those are words. So that's how you would remove the assignment levels, and that's how you would set that up. So as far as the setup process, very easy. It's just all about, like I said earlier, it's all about the workflow. Knowing the workflow. If I set this, it means this, which means this. So you're really going to want to think down the stream. The what if situations are actually pretty applicable in this case, because you want to say, well, what if they're out of the country for a week at a conference and they need to access this service? How can I enable it for them? Well, you could use groups to disable it as well. So that would be another option. Any other questions coming in from the audience? Good question. When I try to set device attribute, it flashes up and then it bounces back to access level details. Any ideas on why this is happening? I am not too sure why that's happening. So you're at your device access levels, create access levels, test. You're saying add attribute device policy. That is odd that it's popping that back up. I do not know. If you had that question, if you're having that problem, if you want to email me at kendallschimmer@amplifiedit.com with some screenshots, I can probably help you out a little bit better. And from Brent, I assume when defining your school network, you would need to define all public IPs that could be used, not the local subnets. Yeah, so you would be basically defining all the public IPs that could be used. You want to make sure that anywhere they are on your school network, that they can access that school network through this policy. All right. Any other questions that are out there? All right, cool. Well, remember that if you are using Enterprise, if you get or think about Enterprise through Amplified IT offers quite a bit. We offer custom license provisioning. We have a dedicated onboarding team. We have weekly office hours. We do updates to all of our services. We have advanced support, and we can sell you Google Voice as well if you're looking at Google Voice too. If you're looking for both, they do have to come from the same vendor, so just make sure you know that. If you are interested, want to talk to us more, we provide a lot of support, obviously, on these webinars. We are as well. But if you have any other questions, please reach out to us at amplifiedit.com. And make sure that you are asking your questions always. And for me, I think that's a wrap. And I think for Devin and I think we want to say thank you so much for showing up today. We're glad you're attending these little sessions. We think they're helpful, short bursts to help you better understand what's going on. Hopefully you learned something today and that you're going to go try out some context-aware access rules. All right. Thank you all very much. Thanks for attending. And if you have any other questions, remember my email is on the beginning of the slide deck here. Have a good one.